How far would you go to protect your child? This is the story of a father who would go to the ends of the universe. Welcome to Blanket of Shadows. Perspective 1. A lost boy. The injured and scared boy, separated from his father, ran through the darkening woods, chased by a man with a rifle. It was fall, and dark noticeably earlier than during the summer just a few weeks ago. A crisp wind blew through the mid-Atlantic trees that were browning after their colorful last gasp and starting to shed their leaves for the winter. "He's just up ahead," the man yelled. "I can hear him." The boy didn't understand the words, but he understood the intentions, and he was scared for his life. He could normally move very quickly, but he had just been shot and struggled to move at all. Up ahead was a row of houses on the edge of suburbia, the like of which he had never seen. All he knew was that there was one with the lights on and an open door. He might have to take that chance at shelter. He stopped at a bush near the open front door, his heart pounding, hesitating. What if there are bad men inside too, he wondered. There was a loud commotion in the woods, and any hesitation fled as the boy slipped inside. "I swear, did you kids leave the door open again?" a woman's voice demanded, stomping through the house and getting closer and closer. The boy ducked into a dark den and hid behind a chair as the woman slammed the door and locked it. He was inside for better or worse. The woman peered into the dark room, and for a moment the boy thought he was busted. The woman stepped into the room, but then there was a loud crash on the other side of the house. "Victor!" the woman yelled and stomped away. The injured boy dragged himself down the hallway, looking for a good hiding spot. He didn't have much time to decide as the woman came charging down the hallway with her own son, dragging him by the arm. The injured boy ran into a room and hid under the bed. "I am so sick of you causing trouble at every turn, Victor," the woman said. "I can't even cook a simple grilled cheese because I'm just cleaning up your messes. Can you just not break anything for 10 minutes so I can get us some dinner before the carnival? Victor, are you even listening?" "It wasn't me," Victor protested. "You always blame me." 10 minutes, the woman barked, wrangling Victor into the room and slamming the door. "Sandwich, jacket, car, nothing else." Victor slung himself onto the bed, creating a bulge on the bottom side of the mattress that almost touched the stowaway. The injured boy, down below, could hear Victor crying in muffled whimpers. He tried to hold as still as possible, but when Victor threw his baseball glove, it startled the injured boy and he let out a terrified whimper of his own. Victor screamed and jumped off the bed, then backed away slowly. The boy watched Victor's feet as Victor slowly walked to the bed and knelt down. The covers lifted up. He thought he was busted for sure. Victor was too scared to actually look, but he tried his best to sound tough. If you try anything, I will kill you," Victor said, his eyes closed, his voice faltering. I swear I will kill you." The injured boy didn't believe him. He could tell the boy was in a different kind of pain. After a moment, the covers dropped again, and Victor jumped back on top of the bed. "I hate it here," Victor said, his lips quivering. The injured boy didn't understand the words, but connected with the sentiment. He crawled out from under the bed and into the room without a noise and stared at Victor crying on the bed. Victor must have sensed his presence because Victor opened his eyes, at first staring at the ceiling before gaining enough courage to turn his head and see that he wasn't alone. Victor crunched up in fear and tried to scream, but his voice was gone. The injured boy held still, hoping Victor would see he meant no harm. He was hurt badly and couldn't last long in this condition. Victor stared back at him. The injured boy took a step towards Victor, but he flinched, so the injured boy paused and they sized each other up. The injured boy could feel so much pain and fear in the also hurting boy. The injured boy took another cautious step, but this time Victor's face showed more curiosity than fear. I hope you understand, the injured boy thought, and lifted his right hand. Perspective 2. An exhausted mother. Mrs. Warner rushed into the dining room. Her husband was away on another work trip, and it was up to her to run the house. This wasn't what she signed up for, and she didn't always have much confidence in her mom abilities, but if she didn't do it, then no one would. She needed sleep, and she needed help that she wasn't going to get. Have you guys finished your sandwiches? She asked. We have to go now if we want time to do everything. Her 5-year-old boy, Charlie, was sitting angelically at the table with an empty plate. He was always so well behaved, unlike his older brother, Victor. Well, I ate mine, Charlie said. Victor's sandwich hadn't been touched. Where is your brother? Mrs. Warner demanded. Charlie just shrugged. Jacket, please, Mrs. Warner said, and Charlie scattered off. Mrs. Warner opened the door to Victor's room. Victor was sitting on the bed with his jacket on, messing with his baseball glove. Jacket on, she demanded as a reflex before realizing he already had it on. Victor just looked at her silently. Eat your sandwich, she said, and no back talk. She paused a moment, but Victor didn't yap back. She started to slam the door, paused, then let it go. Victor's sudden compliance had thrown her off. Mrs. Warner flew back into the kitchen to grab the sandwich for Victor, but there was nothing but crumbs on the plate. She looked back at the hallway behind her. There was no way Victor had beaten her to the kitchen and eaten it. Charlie came into the kitchen, struggling with his jacket. Did you eat your brother's sandwich too? Mrs. Warner asked. I can't get the arms right, he said. And no, Victor just grabbed it. I saw him. He couldn't have, Mrs. Warner said. You know about telling the truth, right? Charlie seemed genuinely distraught at the notion that he wasn't the perfect child. I promise, Mommy, he said. Great, she thought, worried that Victor's behavior was starting to rub off on Charlie. Now I'll have 2 lying boys. But it wasn't worth the argument at the moment. So Mrs. Warner just helped her sweet boy get his armies in his sleeveys and then shooed him down the hall. We're leaving, she yelled at Victor as she ushered Charlie out the door. Her blood pressure was already rising as she anticipated the fight with Victor to get him out the door. She checked in his bedroom, but it was empty, and the mitt was on the bed. Back in the hallway, she noticed a few dark spots on the carpet that weren't there earlier in the day. Victor, she yelled as she headed outside, and lock the door behind you. She pulled out her key to unlock the car, but Victor was already sitting in the back seat. He was looking straight ahead and eating his grilled cheese. Charlie pulled on the door on the other side of the back seat. The door was locked. Mrs. Warner unlocked the car with a beep. I guess I'll lock up, she said. Mrs. Warner was pulling the door shut when she heard a commotion in Victor's room. She softly walked down the hallway to Victor's room and opened the door, not knowing what to expect. The room was silent. She expected to see someone inside, but it was empty. She checked under the bed, looked around, listened for a moment. Nothing. She noticed that the glove wasn't on the bed anymore. Back at the car, she slipped into the front seat. She looked back in the rearview mirror. There were now two perfectly behaved children in the back seat, and one of them now had a baseball glove and a baseball. Mrs. Warner's heart sank and sadness deflected some of her confusion of the timeline of getting the boys into the car. Baseball was a sore subject. In the back seat, she saw Victor looking out the window. He held up his right palm and held it there. "Are you waving at someone, Victor?" she asked. "What are you doing?" No answer. She needed a break. She was losing it. Perspective 3. A sad boy. A few days ago, Victor sat on the worn and patterned living room couch, holding his baseball and glove. He hated school, couldn't stand the chaos of home, but he loved baseball. He loved the crisp lining of the base paths, the smell of freshly cut grass, the sun in his face. He loved the smack of baseballs hitting leather gloves, the ping of bats crushing pitches that hang just a moment too long. He loved the history and the superstitions of the game. He loved its cadences and how the whole world seemed to stop when a pitcher was staring down a batter before throwing a potential World Series deciding pitch. He wasn't much of a joiner, but he loved being part of his team. He didn't even mind when the coaches chewed on him because that meant he was getting special attention. At least when he screwed up on the field, the coaches talked to him about how to get it right the next time and then cheered loudly when he did. It was the only real fatherly attention he got. At home, all he heard was what his mom and dad were doing in the next room. "You said you weren't traveling this week," Mrs. Warner shrieked, her voice only somewhat muffled by the walls. "I said I wasn't traveling next week," Mr. Warner yelled back. "I even marked it on the calendar." "They're scribbling all over the calendar," Mrs. Warner said. "Then maybe don't let the little one draw all over it," Mr. Warner shot back. Victor heard his mom slam the calendar on the ground. "I don't know how much more of this I can take," she said. "I am not your maid." "Obviously not. This place is filthy," Mr. Warner replied. "What are you even doing here the whole time I'm out working?" "Raising the boys," Mrs. Warner replied, begging for some humanity. "I'm raising the boys, our boys. It's just me here, and I'm not getting any help. The boys really need their dad. You promised Victor you'd take him to his game today. Charlie has a doctor's appointment, and I can't be in two places at once." "Oh, give me a break. It's just a game. There's going to be so many games," Mr. Warner shot back. Victor slammed his glove on the ground. There wasn't going to be any baseball today. He was worried he was going to get kicked off the team and lose the only thing that kept him sane while his parents' marriage fell apart. Perspective 4. The Good Boy. The fall carnival was best after dark. When the sun went down and the lights went on, the creepy mid-Atlantic trees disappeared in a cacophony of carnival games and laughter and rides, like the classic carousel. Charlie was a little spooked by the darkness, but there was nothing dark or spooky about this place. It was all lights and noise, and he was sure that if he played his cards right, he'd get a full cotton candy to himself. But first, the carousel, the only ride his mom would let him on. He didn't care for it much, but he swallowed his opinion and hammed it up, while Victor always made a big display about how much he hated it. "Oh, Charlie, you look so much bigger on this than last year," his mom said as she buckled him into a big blue horse. "Victor, oh, you're already buckled," she said, surprised. Victor wasn't acting right today. Charlie knew he was the good one, and Victor was being so well behaved, it was throwing him off his game. Sometimes he wished he was an only kid, so they didn't have to deal with Victor's outbursts. There was a commotion over by the water gun games, but it was hard to hear over all the noise. "He's got a gun," a voice complained. But of course they did. They were all shooting water guns. And then a gunshot. Or was it? It was hard to tell. "Victor," the mom called. "Victor, where did you go?" Charlie looked to his right, and the belt was still buckled, but Victor was nowhere to be found. Yeah, something was up with that guy today. Like how he just showed up out of nowhere and grabbed his sandwich and disappeared. "Can you hold the ride?" his mom asked, but the ride master didn't hear. He limped through a lackluster announcement he could do in his sleep. In fact, he sounded like he was partly asleep. "It's time to start our journey. Stay seated at all times. Any legs and arms you want to keep should be on your horse. Now let's get this party started." Charlie felt a tinge of dread. Something was wrong. It was normally a happier time when the music kicked in and the carousel started turning, and his mom fawned all over him. But this time it sounded ominous with the situation unfolding, and he was alone. Why was his mom abandoning him for his bad older brother? Charlie looked all over for his mom and Victor. He spotted Victor standing silently by the shaved ice stand. Mom was running to him. Wait, how did he get all the way over there so quickly? Mom was trying to get Victor's attention, but as people were running away, he was staring in the direction of whatever they were escaping. There must be something scary in the crowd. Then the carousel turned so that Charlie couldn't see them a moment. Back around again, Charlie could see a hunter with a gun approaching behind them. The crowds had spread wide from the hunter. Had that been the gunshot? And the hunter was walking up to Victor, and Mom had her back turned. "Mom!" Charlie yelled. He lost sight of them as the carousel turned again. Back around again, Charlie could see that Victor had stepped in front of his mother, not showing any fear. His mother, however, was on her knees in terror. Charlie started crying. He didn't understand what was happening, and he didn't want anything to happen to his mother. The hunter and the boy just stared at each other as Mom pled. Why isn't Victor doing anything? Why is he just standing there? Why is the ride still going? He wondered. None of it made any sense. The carousel turned around again, and Charlie saw that the ride master was hunkered down, hiding, and letting the people on the ride fend for themselves. When his family came back into view, Charlie could see that the police were surrounding them, but staying at a distance. The hunter held up his left palm. Victor held up his right palm, the same weird way he did in the car. Emotions overtook them, and the hunter embraced Victor in a giant hug. Charlie had never seen Victor hug anyone, or anyone want to hug Victor. "Freeze!" the police yelled as they got into position. What? What was happening? Were they going to shoot Victor and that strange man? The carousel turned around again, and Charlie lost sight of them. The carousel slowed down, getting just far enough that Charlie could see his mother, slumped on the ground, crying. Where was the hunter? Where was Victor? The cops were walking around, confused. There was no sight of either of them. They had just disappeared. Perspective 5, An Unstoppable Father. The spacecraft crashed through the woods, coming to a rest after an unplanned descent. The father and son had traveled through multiple galaxies to escape persecution just to get shot down onto a strange planet. They had seen many things in the universe, but the abundant wood in the forest was truly rare anywhere but Earth, and their ship wasn't made for landing in such an environment. The father was hurt. Their current bodies weren't made for this atmosphere. They were too delicate for such gravity, and they weren't used to such a harsh environment. Here, their vessels were skinny and elongated and frail, barely there. On the crash landing, he had wrapped himself around his son to protect him, taking the brunt of the blows as best he could. His body was badly injured. Without suitable hosts, they'd never survive this hostile planet. But they were together, and that is what mattered. They no longer had a home planet, they only had each other. He pulled his son out of the damaged ship and dragged both of them as far as he could. His son tried to stand but was dizzy and ill-fit for the planet. After a bit, his son was able to walk, but he was still struggling to move. His son urged him to get up, but he could not. So his son sat with him, and they held up their hands for comfort. The father with the left hand, the son with the right. On their planet, they could move short distances almost instantly, but with the injuries and the gravity, this body wasn't working as expected. They needed to find host creatures suited to the atmosphere. Pow! A shot rang out. A bullet passed through his son, who had no mouth, but his father felt his scream and his pain intently, as if it was his own injury. With their bond, they shared both love and pain. The son took off running as fast as his skinny legs would take him. The father saw the hunter running past him after his boy. "He's just up ahead," the hunter yelled. "I can hear him." The father thought about his son, who was his entire universe, and how there were so many things to still teach him. "Get up," he told himself. "Get up, get up, get up." He pulled himself up, dragging one leg that wouldn't work, and only got a few feet. "Get up," he told himself. "Keep going." He tried to run and fell down. He thought about everything that had been stolen from him, and he wasn't going to lose the one thing that meant the most. He concentrated, focused, and mustered all his strength. He would give everything he had into catching the hunter. The hunter stopped and pulled up his rifle, aiming at the boy. The father, panicking and enraged, forced his legs to work long enough to reach the hunter. He stumbled the last few steps, falling into the hunter, knocking the rifle from his hands. The hunter grabbed the alien father to kill him, but soon the two enemies became one as the alien father took over the human vessel. It would have to do for this planet until they could find a way out. But first he would have to find himself within this strange creature filled with so much hatred and fear. He pushed aside the human's memories, many of them awful, but kept them for reference. To learn the language, to learn to assimilate, to hide in plain sight. The father, now in control of the hunter's body, stood up and grabbed the hunter's rifle. This body was much more equipped for this world. He felt strong, alive, and on a mission to save his son. He walked up to the road and saw a car passing by with two boys in the back seat. One turned and looked at him, and he held up his right hand in that familiar posture. And he knew that was his boy. He'd found a human vessel too, and survived. Now it was time to get him and escape. His love for his son was so great that nothing in the universe could keep them apart. He gathered his thoughts and his strength, and then moved after them so quickly that if you'd seen him, you'd have thought he disappeared. Perspective 6. A father who could have tried harder. Government agents and military types were examining every inch of Mr. Warner's house. They were taking photographs, collecting samples, running scientific instruments everywhere that looked like metal detectors or Geiger counters. 2 men walked out with a stretch of carpet from the hallway. Mr. Warner was already sick of their harassment. It was bad enough that his son had been kidnapped right in front of the police and the kid's mother. Now, because other people screwed up, he was getting interrogated and wasn't allowed back into his own home. "If I had been there, this never would have happened," Mr. Warner said. "Then maybe you should have been around more," Mrs. Warner snapped. But before he could respond, all the instruments lit up in beeps and lights and scary sounds. The agents pulled their weapons, the likes of which he'd never seen. There was a whoosh, like someone had flown through at high speed, and then the instruments died down. A single page of paper fell to the ground, floating and flopping. Mrs. Warner quickly picked it up. "Hand it over," the lead agent said. "Over my dead body," Mrs. Warner said, "but I'll read it out loud." Oh, now she's tough, Mr. Warner thought. Mrs. Warner took a deep breath and read, "Mom, I love you so much. I have to help my friends find their way back home, but after that, I'll come back and explain everything. Don't worry, I'm safe as long as these feds don't take me out. I hope you'll understand. Love, Victor." Mrs. Warner clutched the letter to her chest and cried. Mr. Warner was annoyed that he wasn't mentioned. "And that's it?" he demanded. "All the work he'd done to support the family and not even a mention? What about me? What do I get?" The instruments lit up again. The agents tensed. And then Mr. Warner saw him. Just a glimpse of his son, before Victor shoved a baseball glove in his face so hard it knocked him backwards. And then Victor just disappeared. Mr. Warner pulled the mitt from his face and sat up. No one attempted to help, but several photographers got photos of his mishap and the ensuing chaos. He saw Mrs. Warner, hand over her mouth, laughing through her tears. It was the first time he'd seen her laugh or even smile in a long time.